Join me on an exploration of the virtual world. Building Information Modeling, BIM. It's a process involving the generation and management of digital representations of physical and functional characteristics of a facility. The resulting building information models become shared knowledge resources to support decision-making about a facility from its earliest conceptual stages through design and construction, through its operational life, and eventual demolition. Suddenly, everything changes. Virtual Information Modeling, VIM. The Tech Talk focus is on a disruptive software that is virtually changing the world. That's right, we meet Rodney Mims Cook Jr., co-founder of VIMtrek. VIMtrek is a multi-component revolutionary rendering and collaboration tool that converts files into fully immersive, freely navigable 3D environments. The company was established in 2011 and is a 3D interactive technology company specializing in developing gaming and simulation algorithms. The team has developed the VIMtrek software initially as VIMtrek Producer and then later as VIMtrek Viewer. The software platform is a plug-and-play that offers a new way for the industry to experience a collaborative and fully interactive design, bid, and build process. VIMtrek, it's a real-time interactive experience and complete immersion in the building and interiors environment, enabling architects, designers, and contractors to work faster, smarter, and greener. Rodney is a highly creative and visionary individual. He is truly best described as a Renaissance man. A graduate of Washington and Lee University, by the age of 14, he initiated the campaign which successfully saved the 5,000-plus seat Fox Theater, for which he received the National Trust Preservation Prize. By 74, he was a White House intern. By 82, he established a soon-to-be recognized leading monument, museum, and public parks architecture firm. He is the founding trustee of the Prince of Wales Foundation for Architecture and organized the design and construction of the Prince's Olympic Games Monument here in Atlanta. He is a charter signer of the Congress for New Urbanism. He is currently orchestrating the design for a memorial in Washington, D.C. to Presidents John and John Quincy Adams. Rodney is the founder and the president of the National Monuments Foundation, which choreographed the design and construction of the Millennium Gate Museum right here in Atlanta. He's on the board of directors of the Hertz Foundation, Hertz Castle, California, the Fox Theater Incorporated, the Institute of Classical Architecture and Art in New York, the Savannah College of Art and Design, and is a past president of the Animal Health Trust, U.S., Newmarket, England. We are going to gain the insights into the genesis of the VIMtech technology and find out why it's such a breakthrough technology. Also, we'll learn about one of Atlanta's best-kept secrets, the Millennium Gate, as we tech talk with co-founder of VIMtrek, Rodney Mims Cook. This edition of Tech Talk is brought to you by GlobalSpeak.com, new media consultants, corporate video and audio communications, video and audio production and distribution, live and virtual event production. Tag TV and Tag Radio is a service of GlobalSpeak.com, creatively delivering powerful marketing, video, and audio solutions. Rodney, welcome to Tech Talk.
Thanks very much. Glad to be with you.
Really excited to get into the conversation about VIMtrek. I think a lot of people may be familiar. It seems like maybe 7 to 8 years ago they were talking about geospatial indexing, and they were talking about creating virtual environments that would allow you to look at a geographic location, say from fire safety or police protection and security. And I know that over that period of time also gaming came about, and we had second world type engines that ran virtual worlds and that kind of thing. But business information modeling, that's kind of at the root of what you guys are into, right? I mean, that's something that's been around in architecture for a little bit of time. Tell us a little bit about the genesis of VIMtrek.
I was in a meeting at the Millennium Gate, which is our Georgia History Museum in downtown Atlanta, with Errol Wolford, who is one of our directors. And we have a lot of technology here in our museum that is interactive with young folks. It's compulsory 8th grade Georgia history. We were coming up with a new idea as a third generation for this interactive technology to educate folks, and I was showing it to Errol to see what he thought, and he said, you know, this could have huge ramifications, much more than history. Initially, our third co-founders, Tracy Spate, we were thinking in terms of how can we make CAD drawing, computer-assisted design in the architectural profession, overlap with gaming technology, which he does. And CAD drawing is really, it turned my profession of architecture kind of ugly. Drawings before that were really beautiful, and CAD drawing is pretty mechanical looking. When you combine it with the gaming engine, where everything is very beautiful and very fast, you really have something new. And Errol and his Smart BIM company had an engine for it. And so immediately he said, this will work for a lot more than education and history. So that's how we got started.
Well, you've kind of segued into something that some of our listeners may not be aware of. Obviously, VIMtrek is a winner of the Southeastern Software Association's Impact Award, and it has to do with, I'm going to call it a virtualization engine that allows for the virtualization of anything, actually, but I'm going to say architectural projects. I know in your particular case, monuments and actual gardens and those kind of things that are done on a large scale. When I talk about gardens, I'm talking about historic situations that are pretty elaborate and pretty extensive. So maybe let's touch a little bit on the Millennium Gate and a little bit about what you do besides VIMtrek, because I think you did, and I don't know if you can cover that in a short order, because I know how many interests you have and how successful you are at them. But tell us a little bit about the foundation, the actual Monument Foundation, and some of the stuff that you're into.
The Millennium Gate is in a triumphal arch in Atlantic Station in Midtown Atlanta, and I do a lot of museums, public spaces, parks, monuments. We're currently working on the memorial in Washington to John and John Quincy Adams and their wives. We've been involved in the Eisenhower Memorial discussion in Washington also, and our technology has also been involved with the Washington Eisenhower Memorial situation. The Millennium Gate is the most comprehensive museum of Georgia history in the state. We were assisted by the Georgia Historical Society in Savannah, Atlanta History Center here, Atlanta University Archives, the Bremen Jewish History Museum, numbers of other Atlanta institutions that tell our story, but mostly from their particular focus. We are a broad brush picture of Georgia history, which is, being one of the original 13 colonies, one of the most extraordinary histories of all the 13 colonies.
Now, I got to interrupt you because this is a must-see. It's hard to describe, but I mean it's a building, it's a monument, it's a museum. I've had the real opportunity to have an opportunity to see it for myself, and it is probably one of the most best-kept secrets in Atlanta. Not only is the building and the overall park absolutely magnificent, the inside is educational and intriguing, but then the extra layer on top is the technology, and some of the ways that you've applied that technology is just absolutely brilliant. And the amazing part about it is it sits right next to Atlantic Station, or not too far. You might better describe exactly where it's located in terms of Atlantic Station, because I'm not necessarily familiar with the streets. But I think probably people drive by it almost every day or occasionally drive by it and don't realize the incredible facility that lies inside that building.
You're absolutely correct. Actually, we've had two governors come through, and they said the exact same thing, the best-kept secret in Georgia, and they have committed themselves to helping turn that around and change it. We are in the geographic heart of Atlantic Station at the corner of 17th and State, where the difference between the residential component, which we bridge, and the high-rise development occurs. Mm-hmm. So we've got the Atlantic and the 12th Hotel across the street from us, which are one's 50 stories, one's 30, and then we have the mid-rise residential on the other side of us. And so it's also the largest new urbanism development in in America currently still, because of the 2008 financial adjustment. And so we thought, because I'm a charter signer of the Congress for New Urbanism Charter, that this would be the most appropriate and poignant place to put such a monument, particularly since we excavated all of the underground beneath the arch to have 12,000 feet of exhibition space on Georgia history. Atlanta has, for 150 years, called herself the gateway to the South, but we didn't have a true gateway like many European and American cities. So now we do.
Literally.
A literal gate, and now we do.
You know, one of the things that I was impressed with was it left me thinking how much history is about change, and when you think in terms of change, you normally think of the future, and so I left there thinking, when you realize how much, one of the things that really emphasizes the change aspect, I don't know exactly the proper terminology, but there's literally a wall that is like an LED wall, I guess, or some form of monitor that allows you to look at a location in Atlanta as you see it today. You sweep your arm like a black box Wii game kind of a controller, and all of a sudden it goes back 100 years and takes you to what was there 100 years or the equivalent of 100 years ago in that same location. And I thought, what an amazing perspective, because I think of the Millennium Gate as not so much talking about a gate to Atlanta or a gate to Georgia or even a gate to its history. It's really a gate to its future, because we've embraced change all through our entire heritage. And, of course, we're going through now a new technology era that's going to take us into all kinds of new changes that a lot of us are going to embrace, but a lot of us are going to have to have to deal with, because they're going to, quote-unquote, disrupt our traditional ecosystems, as you might call it. What's interesting, I think, from my perspective, too, Rodney, is that you're such a challenge to describe, in the sense that you focus so strongly on tradition, and you are such an evangelist in terms of architecture being more of a traditional architecture, and yet you're also a new visionary, a new thinker that takes and pushes the envelope from the Millennium Gate all the way to VIMtrek. So it's a pretty amazing story. We're going to run out of time pretty quickly here. Let's go back, if you will. I do want to reemphasize again, it's the Millennium Gate, and again, where is it located, Rodney? What are the street intersections?
The Millennium Gate is located at the intersection of 17th Street, which is the main avenue that goes through the center of Atlantic Station, and State Street. We are in the middle of the avenue. We're a triumphal arch based on the Arch of Titus, and you can't miss us. We're 10 stories tall.
I say to any of our members, any of our listeners, you've got to see it to believe it. It's probably something that you're going to say, I've gone by here and didn't even realize that it was there. And it's ironic, because it's magnificent. It's just, I guess maybe it's a case, if you do your job well enough and place something almost exactly where it's supposed to be, it doesn't necessarily stick out in terms of being so blatant that it's intrusive, because it just seems like it's been there for 100 years, 1,000 years. I mean, I don't know. But at any rate, let's talk a little bit about the award and the breakthrough part of the technology with VIMtrek. You mentioned that some of the people that were in the early evolution of the concept kind of backed away and said, whoa, wait a minute, this has got more legs on it than you might think. How do you guys are positioning it now? Where do you see it as a breakthrough technology?
Actually sort of go offline. Backed away from it? Tell me what you meant by that.
We're now back on the subject of
I know we're back, but nobody backed off. Errol, if anything.
No, I don't mean back off. I mean backed away and went, whoa, this is something more.
I see what you mean. Yeah,
something more to it.
Yeah, no, Errol, who is one of the directors of the National Monuments Foundation, which is the parent of the Millennium Gate, he was so enthusiastic he just about jumped out of his chair. And we have found that it has some sort of use for pretty much everybody. There is very little in any sort of part of contemporary lifestyle that we have found that can't use it for something. And it's staggered us, because initially it was designed for museums. We're in the museum business too, and typically 90 to 98% of museum collections are stored, and people rarely get to see them ever. And so the idea being that we could virtualize museum interiors and bring all of the ultimately, if we get all these museums, we could have the entire cultural patrimony of the planet available to everyone that has a computer for the first time in history. And you can get so close to the works of art, be they sculpture or paintings, that you can see sculpture carving marks as well as the brushstrokes of, Manet or Leonardo. You can get closer to them than you can when you're really there. And in the case of Leonardo's Mona Lisa, it's behind glass and behind ropes and guards. You can get so close to it, you can't believe it. So that was an initial idea that Tracy and I were trying to come up with to be able to allow more people to have connection to their cultural patrimony.
Well, it's pretty. We're blessed in the fact of what we do with Tech Talk. We talk to a lot of verticals. We get to talk to a lot of thought leaders and visionaries, a lot of technology programmers and developers of one kind or another. Again, this is a rare for me to have the opportunity to have really seen this and see it demonstrated. And again, to the listeners, you can't put it into words. I mean, what you're looking at it's virtual, but it's not. You see it as it is, and in fact, isn't it even a case where you can change the seasons and change the perspective? I know one of the things that you're working on is a potential park that needed community support, and instead of having to devise enthusiasm by way of even renderings and detail renderings, you were kind of literally able to take them through a walk through the park.
Yes, we did, and as a result, we have 100% neighborhood agreement with what we want to do, which is typically not a neighborhood that agrees to things like that very quickly. And so that was a huge help to us, that we really meant what we were telling them. As well, we have significant hospital in Istanbul that we're working on. It looks like that we're going to save them in the range of €1 billion on their construction. Another project in Sagrera, Spain, likewise, our technology was able to pick up mistakes that were made in the thousands of pages of drawings. Mistakes, get made and then they just get repeated. And no one then notices them. Well, our system picked up in both of those circumstances errors, and we're able to correct them. We picked them up in 2 minutes. We can also map carbon footprint. Various complexes, single buildings, or entire regions of the city, we can pick up carbon footprint. And so you can also deal with that sort of green issue today and correct your building, because Errol, my partner's company, also is very involved with RS Means, and so they know with just the tweak of some tiny bit of information that could have huge ramifications in the millions, and in some cases $1 billion, to fix a green issue that's not green. President Clinton in the Clinton Global Initiative, is my understanding, is now quoting my partner Errol, in part because of the carbon footprint issue as well. Currently, estimators are paid around 10% of all construction, whereas the architects and engineers are paid 7% combined. 4.5% for architects and 2.5% for construction engineers. That's just wrong. And our system can fix that overnight and have that imbalance for the folks who are actually constructing and designing these things have more of the lion's share of what is generated in those sorts of costs.
Well, there's a number of areas, especially as of late, where the technology community is recognizing where Georgia leads. We lead in logistics. We lead in health IT. We lead in fintech. I think, Rodney, you and the people at VIMtrek are setting the standard in which we'll be leading in virtual reality and virtual environments, because this new technology and new product, it's somewhat of an exaggeration, but its level of impact is disruptive. And I know that a lot of times, especially when we deal with startup incubator type visionaries, they want to, quote unquote, change the world. And I think you're about doing it. I think you've got two aspects: the physical aspect of what you do that creates these incredibly magnificent spaces all over the world. And now you've got a case where there's a platform to do almost identical, at least in the mind of the beholder, in a virtual reality. So again, compliments on the award, compliments on the Impact Award winning with the Southeast Software Association, but equally as important, congratulations on all of the things you're doing. And one last point before we close today's presentation is, once again, ladies and gentlemen, listeners, you've rarely heard me say this, but I'm telling you, you've got to search out the Millennium Gate, and you've got to see it for yourself.